Well, Jonathan, we have breaking news. We're just getting word from Qatar negotiators that the hostage holdup has been resolved, bringing in now Ambassador Michael Oren, former Israeli ambassador to the U.S. and a member of the Israeli Knesset. We're not sure of the details, Ambassador, in terms of exactly when this now kink that has been released out of this chain, if you will, when the flow will begin again. But, you know, you can't really trust Hamas, quite frankly. With this delay in the first place, what message was Hamas sending, and what are they up to at this point?
So good to be with you. So Hamas is reminding us of who and what it is. It's a terrorist organization. It's like negotiating with ISIS or negotiating with Al Qaeda. And Hamas, as a terrorist organization, of course, is not an honest negotiator. It's going to move the football. It's going to move the goalposts. And the goal there is not just to terrorize us physically. It's to terrorize Israelis emotionally. And you can imagine what these families are going through, knowing at the last minute everything may fall through, or even that the people who are on the list, or the hostages scheduled to be released, may not be released. And Hamas will do this again and again and again. I'm not the least surprised by this delay or any delay that's going to occur toward the end of the ceasefire period.
I mean, Qatar, they don't necessarily have the loved ones on the line and wanting to get them back into their arms, but they have a lot at stake in terms of putting themselves very forward-facing on the negotiations. So you'd imagine that the Qatari officials are working diligently to try to get this to continue to run as smoothly as possible, given the circumstances. But where we sit now, where does that portend, or what does that portend for a potential extension to this pause in fighting?
Just to show you how absurd the situation is, Qatar is the principal backer of Hamas. Major Hamas officials live in Qatar. So Qatar is getting it both ways. It's promoting Hamas, promoting the atrocities and horrors of October 7th, promoting the hostage crisis, and then getting credit for trying to resolve the hostage crisis. Almost you can't make this up. So Qatar's line its reputation is on the line because if it can't produce that, it can't produce the hostages, it's left with just holding the we promoted Hamas card, which was not particularly good for Qatar. They're rife with dangers for the state of Israel. And one of your commenters previously said that Hamas will use this period to reorganize, to rearm, to move troops from the south up north again. And Israel has to make the terrible decision of weighing a hostage life against a soldier's life, because this is liable, very much liable, to cost us in terms of our soldiers' lives when the ceasefire renews. And even when the fighting renews, and in getting the fighting renewed is even more problematic, because now there's a momentum in the world where the world is saying, well, you agreed to this ceasefire, why not a longer ceasefire? And there's even domestic pressure within Israel for that effect. And here's the bottom line: a ceasefire means Hamas gets away with mass murder. Ceasefire means Hamas wins. Ceasefire means that Israel cannot restore its internal security. We have 250,000 refugees inside the state of Israel who have been moved away from the border. They cannot go back to those border areas if Hamas is allowed to rearm and mount further attacks. And they have said openly that that is their goal.
And Israel has also said that once these hostages are released, as many as possible, we hope, that the fighting will continue. They've said that part out loud. So it almost begs the question, so what's the point of what's happening now? I mean, is it strictly for Hamas to regroup their forces so they can, reorganize, so they're a more formidable force against the IDF? But even though IDF says, bring it, no matter what you do, we're coming for you, basically.
Mm-hmm. And there's two basic points which have to be stressed here. One is that Hamas wouldn't be negotiating now the way it's negotiating if Israel hadn't moved its ground forces into Gaza and closed that noose around Hamas. They're underground. They've been underground for 7 weeks, too. They're hardly not fighting at all. They come up, their terrorists come up, shoot an RPG or an anti-tank missile, then they run back down. They're under siege. So Hamas is playing for time. It's playing for time and hoping that the international community will increase its pressure on Israel to accept the ceasefire, because remember, ceasefire means victory. But the second point is the most difficult point, and this is brace yourself, and that is Hamas will not release all the hostages, because it knows once it released the last hostage, that is when Israel will flood those tunnels with seawater or some flammable substance, and that will be the end of Hamas. So I think the goal here for Israel is, on one hand, to get as many hostages out, particularly the women, children, the elderly, the infirm, and then to renew that pressure on Hamas by restarting the military stage of this battle.
A conundrum indeed. But again, the breaking news is that according to Qatar negotiators, the hostages, the second batch or group, if you will, of hostages will be released today. Quickly, Ambassador, what do you make of the fact that no Americans are included in this second group?
There we go. It's moving the football again. What is Hamas trying to do? It's trying to drive a wedge between the United States and Israel. It's causing, it's raising tensions on the American side, and hopefully the Americans then will put pressure on Israel to extend the ceasefire to get more American prisoners out. You see how this works? Ingenious, right? But evil, ingenious, sinister. That's who we're dealing with. They are not an honest negotiator. They're not going to negotiate in good faith. They're a terrorist group, and they will terrorize both us and the people of the United States on this holiday weekend.
Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Oren, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.